Okay, so what I want to do now is to go through the unit text, what we have as a text in this class, which is a printed material for you so that you can actually do annotations. I want to go through this and show you the process of annotating and how that's supposed to help you. And it will help you if you do it well to study technical material. So you're going to get an assignment of doing certain sections of the textbook, annotating and studying, not every night, but we'll try to give you enough pages for you to work effectively, and we're trying to do it so that you get about a 45-minute window of studying. Whatever your homework is should be no more than 45 minutes, and if it's taking you longer than that, then you need to come and talk to me, and let's see if there's something in what I'm assigning to you, or if it's something that in your how you're doing it. Sometimes students spend way more time with the annotations and studying the first time through than they really need to, because what we're also doing in addition to studying at home is we're going over the major things in class. The goal of doing this process is that you have an introduction to the material before you come to class, so by the time you come to class you're getting a second look at it. And you also are able to cover some things that are somewhat more mundane, things like definitions of words that we don't need to spend a lot of time on in class, and we can spend more time on the things that are cognitively a little more difficult to do, things that you need more time working on. And so we try to do less of the typical kind of homework at home, that is where you go home and you do problems, and spend more. You do the sort of the note-taking part that often takes place in class. You do that at home by doing the annotations. And then in class we'll spend more time doing the kind of things that typically are done as homework, where you can get more help and more feedback. So this is just the first section of the first unit. And if you'll notice on this first page here, I've got for you an annotation guide. Now in the first unit I want you to use this key that I've given you. Okay, just for the first unit, and then after that we can talk about how you can deviate and use your own kind of key to do the same sort of thing. But what it's telling you is you want to circle the headings and subheadings, and then key content vocabulary, any kind of words or phrases that you come to that seem important, and most of them are going to be highlighted, but not everything would be. But if it's a word that seems pretty important, you want to put a box around it. Then you want to write, if there's a definition associated with that word, then you're going to also underline, you're going to write DEF in the margin to kind of draw your mind back to that later on. You're going to underline important ideas. Now you won't have any equations until much later in the semester, but I think I may have one or two in here just for an example for you to be able to use and write equation next to it so you can get used to that process. But most of the equations will come along about halfway through the semester. Any key steps to problem solving, you want to underline those. So those are just like important ideas. Key steps are important ideas. You're going to underline those. If you come up through anything in the text that you're studying and you really just don't quite get, you studied the way you're supposed to, you just don't quite get it, well then you write a question in the margin to remind you the next day at the very beginning of class you want to come in and ask me about that, okay? And you ask it for everybody so that everybody gets the benefit of the questions you're asking. And then finally we're going to write a learning objective next to each subheading. All right, let's go through and look at some of these. Now, what I have on this page number 2, and let me just raise the camera up just a little bit. You can't read it as well when I do that, but you can see more of the context. And hopefully you're also looking at your handout. If you don't have that out, get that out now and look at that. On the next page, on the second page, you've got some background information on the nature of scientific inquiry and lab safety. So we're going to be doing as many labs as we can fit time in to do them. We want to do as many as we can so you get an opportunity to put your hands on the actual things we're learning about through the time in class that we're going over problems or solving problems or talking about things, and from your studying here. And so this is kind of background information. You need to read through it, but it's not especially intense. I don't really expect you to annotate any of this page. Okay, and this over here is explaining what good study skills would look like. Now, this may seem all a little cumbersome at first, but you get better at it as time goes along. And we're going to be very lenient in the beginning. What we're going to do is we're going to give you a chance to get used to the process before it becomes more where I sort of crack down, if you will. And I'm not really talking about really cracking down, but I'm being more careful about what I'm expecting of you. I'm being more intense about what I expect of your annotations as you get used to the process. So the first couple of units, you get a lot of leeway. In fact, you can make up anything you don't get right the first couple of units, because I know it's new to you. I understand that it's something that you probably haven't done very much. You've probably done annotations in an English class, but not in a class like math or science where it's more technical. So it's telling you how to do that. There's some more explanation here on what the annotation process is all about. Again, I don't think you need to annotate this section, but read it so it gives you more background information, a better understanding, I hope, of what annotating is supposed to do for you and how it works. And then now on page 4, this is a copy of all the text that was in your safety contract. So you took that home the first night. You were supposed to take that home and read through it, and your parents were supposed to read through it, and then you signed the safety contract. Well, I don't have the section that you signed on the back page for this. This is just the textual part of it, from which we will get our safety test that you have to pass. So you want to read through this again, now that you've got it, and hopefully you read the safety contract the first night, and you're going to read through this again. And then we come to a practice test. Now, we've got about a week probably before we take the safety test, and you want to work on this. You want to answer this practice test. You want to do this practice test, but I would recommend you do the online version of it, because the online version of it will give you a chance to do the questions. And if you miss anything, it's going to tell you what you got wrong, and then you're going to get a chance to do it over again. And you can do it as many as 3 times. Now, you can do a paper and pencil test, but I can't give you 3 times to do it over if you're doing a paper and pencil test. So, but the computer will let you do it if you do it online, and that's found at QuizStar. If you go to QuizStar, and you can just use a search engine and look up QuizStar. When you get to QuizStar, you need to find the student login page. When you get to the student login page, you're going to have to create an account. Just means you have to put in a login name. You have to create a password. And then as you get drill down further into that, you're going to have to look up this class. And I would suggest you put in as a search word, there's a place you can put in teachers' names. Put in Tedder with a capital T, just Tedder with a capital T, and then you'll find a short series of teachers who have quizzes on there with a last name, and their last names are all Tedder, and mine should be easy to find. And you're looking for the class that matches yours, in this case CP Chemistry. All right, so now we're really on page 7 here, where you actually start worrying in some detail about annotations. Okay, now the key questions I have at the beginning of each section are not things that you're actually supposed to answer on paper. You're supposed to read through those to get an idea of what's going to be in that section. So in that section it says that you're going to know what density is. Well, actually you should know what density is already. That's something you covered in earlier science classes, and you did math with density in physical science. It says if the mass of a substance is 25 grams, the volume is 1.25 liters, what's the density, and show all your work. Well, I don't expect you to actually show your work, but I'm giving you a clue about the kind of things that you're going to learn about in this section. Well, again, those are the things you actually learned about in physical science. So hopefully by reading through this section, you're going to be reminded of the things you really should already know. If you don't really remember it right off the top of your head, that's fine. If you don't remember it anyway, I guess it's okay too. The point is that with any luck at all, we're hoping that you're going to bring back to memory the things that you learned in those earlier classes. Okay, now let's look at so you're going to read through those questions, then you're going to go and just try to thumb through the section, and you're going to see there are headings here. And there's things about some definitions of intensive properties. There's stuff about density, quantitative and qualitative observations, and then there's some practice problems at the end. So this is as far as that first section goes. So really, this is all telling you about what you're going to learn about in this section. Well, the idea now is for you to start learning to write an objective. You want to kind of think about what it is you're going to be learning in this particular section. And so if you read through the questions, you're going to figure out, well, are we learning about intensive properties and extensive properties. I'm going to learn that density is part of all of that. That density is an extensive property. I'm going to learn that mass and volume, which make up density, are intensive properties. Density is an intensive property, and mass and volume are the extensive properties. And that's what they're all kind of tied together. So you're going to read through these things, and you get an idea of what the unit's about. And then you're going to write an objective statement. This is what I expect to know when I'm finished with this section. Okay? It doesn't have to be a really long explanation, but it has to be on point. What do you expect to know? Now, I've given you actually a definition of what a learning objective is supposed to be and how you start about writing that. And so what you want to start is saying, after studying this section, I will be able to. Okay? And I even give you an example in this case. In this case, I'm saying that I will be able to use some basic information about chemical and physical properties and the distance between them, the difference between them, the difference of the definition of density, how density is an intensive property or physical, and how density changes with physical state, and the difference between an intensive and extensive property. And I don't really expect you to be even that detailed, but I'm giving you what a really good objective statement would be. I don't expect yours to be quite so detailed as that. Okay, but if you read through these questions, that would all be reflected right there. Okay, but what I might expect of you would be something like, after I finish reading this section, I will understand what intensive and extensive properties are, and how individual measurements are usually extensive properties, but when you put them together in a ratio, you very often get an intensive property like density. Okay? And if yours is not as good as that, that's okay. We're in a learning process. In the first few units, that's what we're trying to do. I don't expect your objective statements to be the ones that I would write. I expect them to be reasonable for what you're learning. Okay? All right. So I've given you that example, and so basically you can just copy that up here. It's an example for you to start with. Okay?